Are there any public comments?
Nobody online?
I don't see any. There being none, the August seventh meeting minutes were sent out. I wasn't at that meeting, so I have no comments on them. Does anyone have any comments?
That looks good.
And I would entertain a motion to approve them as they were submitted.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So the next item on our agenda is the affordable housing monitoring report.
Yep, let's see.
I didn't realize there were so many already affordable and being monitored places in town.
Yeah, so, now that we have a housing committee and, sort of a staff person assigned to the, sort of housing stuff in town, it's always been our intention to, prepare this memorandum for the select board, for the town manager and select board to just, give them an idea of where things stand and how, currently permitted projects are complying with provisions of affordable housing. So we drafted up this little report. So the town, has permitted a number of projects that are required under their conditions of approval to have some affordable housing. And the town once had somebody who would monitor these for us. Housing Vermont used to do the monitoring, and they no longer do that. So now it falls upon staff, the zoning administrators and town staff to do that. And so, now that we've got inclusionary zoning, we're gonna continue to hopefully have more affordable housing. But anyway, so this is, basically a report showing you how many there are and what the compliance rate is. I thought I would share this with you, obviously, so you can comment and, if you have questions, we can discuss. But I can go through it. So those are the projects that are monitored by the town. You'll see right off the bat, there, Cottonwood Crossing only has one affordable unit. And the reason for that is that its approval is vested under the old system, and in the old system, we considered up to 120% area median income to be affordable. So they promised a number of units. I think the total of 18 units at 120 AMI. They've built, or maybe 17. They built 17 units. Affordable 120% AMI, but we're not monitoring those because they no longer meet our definition of affordability. So there was one that they built that was at 100% AMI. And Finney Crossing has 29 apartments. The Hamlet has 33.
But where's the hamlet?
The Hamlet is, it is just north of Finney. It's right off of I want to say Zephyr Place. It's like, what are some of the streets in there?
Sort of like Finney
It's
Crossing, but the next section north.
sort of northeast of Finney Crossing. I want to say, I can bring it up if you want. I can bring it up on a map.
I'm gonna ask you about all the rest of them, because I don't know where any of the rest of them.
Sure, yeah, why don't I just, I'll bring up the town maps. That's the easiest way to do that. Let's just say chunks. This way, it's just, that's the easiest way, so, I'll zoom out a little bit. That's where the hamlet is. It's those little tiny squares in there,
Oh,
kind of,
including a great big apartment house.
Yep.
And, okay.
yeah, and the apartment is the one, that has the affordable
Okay.
ones. So. Um. All right. And then, so those are the rental units, and then there's several for sale units. Including a project called the Big Three LLC. It had one half of a duplex that was required to be affordable. And then Northridge promised 9 affordable units. They've built 5 so far. They're sort of in their last phases of kind of finishing up construction. And the South Road Land Company, which is this little development out on South Road. Out, just trying to think of a cross street that would be, it's like,
Is it below Christmas Lane?
yeah, it's below Christmas Lane, yeah, it's out where the more like you come to those open fields, kind of part of South Road, I believe, let's see, let me see if I can bring that up too. Yeah, so South Road. This is Oakville,
That's South Road.
yeah, so it's somewhere out here, I wanna say. I could bring up the exact address, but, you know, we could sort of get the idea right. And so, the way that the affordability is monitored is, I created this form that I sent out letters and forms to each, of the rental unit owner or rental apartment owners. And I asked them to, fill in a spreadsheet just saying what their rents were and then what utilities the tenant's responsible for, and then the worksheet kind of automatically populates the rest and tells you whether they're complying or not. So that's, you know, that's a fairly easy way to do it. And for owner occupied homes, I just looked up the most recent sale price of the home. And I compare that to the maximum allowed sales price under the affordability provisions. And so all the affordable dwellings listed above are in compliance with the affordability provisions. And what I noticed is that many of the rental units actually meet stricter affordability criteria than what they're required. Like many of the ones that are required to be 100% are now at 80%. That's the Finney Crossing apartments. And actually, I just, for the heck of it, I looked at just their market rate rentals, a bunch of those, and a lot of those fall under 100% AMI. So that tells you, I mean, I guess what that tells you is it's fairly easy. It seems like it's fairly doable to have at least apartments, you know, come in at the median area income. So a lot of people would say that's still not affordable. And you look at the actual rents and it's, you know, it's hard to see how we can afford that, but.
Is it, but that's going by the Chittenden County.
By the, yes, by the Chittenden County median income.
But those Penny Crossing are 20 years old, or are they older than that?
They're, not
No.
as old as that, they were. When did this go? I think they were 2015-ish, 20, is when the apartments started.
The Maple place, I get it.
Oh, Maple.
Oh, Maple's
Place.
replaced.
Yeah.
That's a lot older, that's,
Okay.
that is, and that's one that the town does not monitor, that's, because it's a CHT development, but.
I got
The
it.
Maple Tree Place is, in the 90s or maybe 2000s.
Got it.
Was built,
But there is sort of this natural aging thing
That's
where
right.
things get more affordable as they've been around, I would assume.
Yeah, right, so
What is
there's
that?
this,
And that doesn't include the senior housing?
which,
No,
Some
the
of-
ones like up behind the post office in Blair Park.
oh, yeah, so if you. Yeah, that'll come later.
Yeah, there's another table.
The Maple Tree Place, I believe, is owned by Champlain Housing Trust, so
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
there shouldn't be a problem with
Right.
affordability for those.
right, and ideally, you get, that's, a great reason to have CHT or another affordable housing developer come in and do these projects, so that you don't have to monitor them going forward. Anyway, so there's some pending, residential projects that are either in some stage of permitting or fully permitted. And Cottonwood Crossing is one of those, that has like pending, 52 units of affordable units rather, rental units. Their project is completely stalled for reasons that we don't really understand, or, we would like them to. Continue building their projects, but unfortunately, when they were permitted, it was. This period of time when we had enacted this slow build provision, which basically says that, that these permits never expire. But, you, after like 5 years of inactivity, you can only build like a certain number, very small number of units a year. And then those were subsequently, like, we got rid of those, the slow build provisions. Because I think we realized that, we have a situation where there's this. Permitted development who's had permits for many, many years and has no motivation to come in and finish the project, so. That's kind of a problem, and I don't know, I think.
Well, those growth management lists are like 10 years long, right? So to expect developers to hold on for 10 years is pretty big ask.
Anyway, so Northridge still has 4 units, left to go. 4 affordable units, and the annex is just started construction. And they're building 28 affordable units. Finney Crossing, building G is under construction, and they're building 6, that's the building next to the hotel on Finney Crossing. And then 2300 St. George Road is building 12 affordable units, that is fully permitted but not under construction, we don't know what's gonna happen with that.
Is that on the far side of the interstate or?
It's, that is. It's before the interstate, where's 2A, here's 2A. So it's where the two banks are,
Like CVS and then across there.
It's not between the police station and Chili's.
Oh, that building.
that one right there,
Oh,
yeah, so it's,
okay,
let's see, let's put some imagery on here.
interesting place for residential development.
Yeah, it's an apartment, and it's, it is the first, 6-story building in Taft.
Oh, that one.
It will be,
Yeah,
yeah, so it's
in front of
this,
TD Bank.
right in front, right here.
Yeah.
So it's right on the street, big tall building, or that's how it's designed, who knows if it's gonna get built or not. Anyway. Okay, so. And then the other affordable housing units, these are ones that are not monitored by the town. Zephyr Place that was recently constructed, owned by CHT. Affordable at 80% or below, Maple Tree Housing, CHT property. And that, I think that also has some market rate units in it, at least that's what the Vermont Finance Housing Agency says. But it has 36 affordable units. And then Pinecrest Village is there's 6 rental units that are owned by Champlain Housing Trust. I think they're all duplexes, I believe. And Whitney Hill Homestead, which is right in town, right in the village here, owned by Cathedral Square. Champlain Housing Trusts also owns 9 mobile home units that are, or a mobile home park that's down a little ways down Route 2 as you start going down the hill. French Hill Manor. They have a few other shared equity homes in town, 3 others. And then there's the senior housing, Eagle Crest and Falcon Manor, Dusevich Construction or Blair Housing is the name of the. Yeah. And then there's Memory Care in Allenbrook, which is restricted to people with disabilities, or I think that's my understanding. And that is owned by Cathedral Square, so a total of 218 that are not monitored by the town, a total of 100 pending affordable units and 70 that are now being monitored by the town. And then this just shows you what the affordability reporting forms look like. Really make it bigger, but basically it's just if you look at it really closely, you can see the rental rates. The hamlets are the lowest, and I mean some of those would even meet like affordability at like 60 or 70% AMI, which is not bad. But anyway, and then the for sale prices, which will really blow your mind. But you'll see that there was a big jump between 2020 and 2022 in the price.
Is the $509,000 or $508,000 house affordable at some defined level?
Yes, it meets affordability for a 4-bedroom house at 100 AMI.
Okay,
That's the 436 then,
That one,
that's higher than the max.
oh yeah, okay, so there's a little explanation there, and that's the maximum sale price that would meet the 100% affordability threshold is 423, 467. They sold it for 436, 732 because there was a provision in the affordability covenant that allowed them to sell it for what it cost them to build. So if it costs them to build more than the maximum sale price, they were allowed to sell it for that. We no longer have that provision, so if a developer,
it's their risk.
it's their risk, and they have to, do something with their market rate units or somehow figure out how to recoup that. So. Are there any other questions about that? If not, I'll move on. So I just did this little mapping exercise that shows the market, well, basically the for sale prices for the last 4 years or so. And I'll show you the legend. So the dark green are the least expensive, and the dark red are the most expensive homes. So you get a sense of kind of where, the less expensive homes are, and where the more expensive homes are,
Where the trailer parks are.
and where the
Right.
mobile home parks are. And there's
Well, there is
Littlewood, Williston.
pretty good dispersion, though. I'm happier that we don't have exactly ghettos.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah, there is some dispersion.
we don't have all the rich people concentrated in, you know, certain places.
Right,
All those, I mean, obviously you
Well,
can tell some of that are. Yeah, that's right. Yes, my neighbors down the road.
right. So that, you know, that kind of gives you an idea geographically of the home sale prices. And then I got this data from the property transfers, there's a property transfers data set. That's a geospatial data set that's on the Vermont Center for Geographic Information's open data portal. So that I think is gonna prove pretty useful. The other thing is that, I had to do a lot of sort of data cleanup. There's a lot of properties, much more than I imagined, that are just sort of people give to their kids, so they are selling for $0. So I weeded all those out, and I started from 75,000, you know, saying, okay, well, that's, you know, it's still very low, but
Right.
it's, you know, and so it's not like perfect or anything, but yeah, there were a number of properties that just got transferred without, you know, a sale price. And then the property transfers data set also includes a bunch of commercial properties, which this only includes residential properties. That have homes on them. So there's a bit of like sort of weeding to do. And then this just shows home sale prices over the last 4 years, going steadily up. And then this just shows you the distribution of home sale prices. And as you can see,
That's that same 4 years.
yeah, same over the same 4 years. And you know, so you can see the median is around 420 something thousand. Median sale price, and then the it's definitely skewed toward the more expensive homes. And there's a bunch of like really, you know, the dots at the top are considered the outliers, and those are like the really super expensive ones. So, anybody, any questions about this?
Certainly represents a lot of hard and meaningful work. And you look at the three last charts, it's an interesting view of the town. Can you go back up to the one that shows the town again?
Sure,
Now that we've seen the others, why,
yeah,
okay, so now you know, someplace there's one in there that was almost $1.5 million.
yeah.
And one of those dark
Mhm.
dark specks.
Mhm. Yeah.
But there aren't any more than that. Is that's the highest price?
Yeah,
In the
so
last 4 years.
in the last 4 years, it was, you know, 1.3 something million. Yeah,
I mean, some of these lots down here on the DRB, we see them come in and subdivide now. I don't know the exact numbers, but there's, you know, on Butternut, there was 3, maybe 6 or so new lots created, and then there was one off of, you know, back in here, I think we created 3 in the last month.
Oh,
My
you mean-
neighbor on my road just
Yeah.
created 3 from one.
So, I mean, there's smaller lots, I don't know.
It'll have to be 2 acres
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna be affordable, well, they don't have to be 2 acres, but.
for sewer and septic.
But anyway, I don't know if that's gonna be an impact on, I don't know that they're gonna be super affordable, but they're,
yeah,
Well,
But they
except
might
except
come
in the
down a
sense
little.
that increasing housing stock, the
Mhm.
fact that these houses are, the requirement was that they be at 100%, and they're in fact at 80% or less.
Yeah.
Seems to indicate that that the rental opportunity is making it so that it's starting to
Mhm.
hold prices down.
Yeah, and. I mean, I think you can also sort of see the natural affordability. Of like, you look up in this part of town. This is like one of the first sort of densely developed areas of Williston. It's developed in the, I don't want to say the sixties and seventies, and a lot of homes up here are in the more affordable range. So sort of like over time, I mean, with some places that won't happen because they're really big houses and, you know, but. Anyway,
Yeah, and I'm super interested in the lot sizes, right? Where there's
yeah,
0.2 acres
Yeah.
that can be split off, so some of those neighborhoods have pretty big lots, right?
yeah, a lot of them, I mean, right, even up in the northeast, northwest part of town. A lot of those lots are big enough, in theory, big enough to subdivide, it's
Yeah.
just,
And on water and sewer.
When they were originally
Yeah.
built, well, it was before the water and sewer went in, so they were built to have their own wells and septic
Oh.
systems.
yeah, that makes sense,
Oh, that's why
Developed
they were
behind the
bigger lots.
Episcopal Church.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah,
They were the people that were the first in line to vote in favor of the sewer system because their systems weren't working well.
uh-huh, yeah, oh. It's good to know,
That makes sense.
for sure. Okay. Well. There's no other questions.
That's great work, as always,
Thanks. Wasn't.
and it'll be fun now to track it annually and be able to talk about increasing numbers.
So you're gonna send this report to Eric, or you've already sent it?
I haven't sent it yet, I'll send it to you if you. Have any like thoughts about any revisions or anything, you can send them to me.
I read it online today. I didn't see a need to make any revisions. I was just impressed with the quality of the work.
Oh, well, thank you, that's nice.
And the only thing that would be interesting as we get hard goals, like, how much
Yeah.
affordable housing do we wanna have in X amount of years, it'd be nice to see those charted against some kind of goals,
Yep,
but we don't have that yet, so.
well. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So that sort of. That's a nice segue into the work plan.
Yes.
Monica, do you have any comments?
Not at this time. I'm learning a lot. That was a great presentation.
Oh, thanks, yeah. You do?
We hold our meetings in the dark.
No, it's summertime.
Yeah. Moving along.
Well, then let's go on to our discussing our fiscal year 25 work plan, and we'll start with the results of the survey.
Sure, okay, so I'm gonna present. With the results. Yeah, so basically, I'm gonna go back to introduction. I use this kind of format to help the energy committee prioritize things for the work plan and found it useful. And anyway, so that's where the idea came from. And I made this sort of like draft work plan with ideas that had come up before, and the idea was to look at that prior to doing this. Looks like 4 people completed it. So if you haven't had a chance to do it, be great if you could, so we can get everybody's input. But so far, this is kind of, this is what we've got. Top priorities seem to be evaluate land in Williston for potential to support affordable housing. And connect with affordable housing developers and agencies doing housing work. And then third, launching and promoting the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Where outreach to local employers about workforce housing issues and promoting accessory dwelling units were sort of on the lower end of the priority spectrum. So. Any thoughts about that?
I would be a little curious to hear why people voted certain things, 'cause that's one thing I
Like
miss
people
when we,
voting for what?
why you picked a certain thing. Just because when we vote like this, then you don't hear I don't hear your reasons that might make me think, oh, well, maybe that makes more sense.
Well, I have a little bit of a data point for the last one. So, we're partnering with Shelburne for this and posted in Front Porch Forum. So, talking with, I can't even remember her name. Anyway, our show, Pam, talking with Pam, 14 Willistonians are going to this meeting.
No, great.
So either the trick is pizza or, or,
Definitely.
and I think we had one email. I mean, Melinda and I, between the two of us, maybe have had 3 people, or at least the ones you've been sharing with
3
me,
or 4 maybe.
that are talking on Front Porch Forum emails to us. So anyway, I mean, that shows some interest. And those kind of things are fairly straightforward. One person was asking if we would have a Williston one,
Yeah.
but if
right.
14 people are willing to go to Shelburne, that might be a lot of our crowd too.
Yeah, yeah, I thought I mean, honestly, I wasn't expecting the level of interest. And there is interest out there. Yeah. We're
Mhm.
learning more about how to do this, and so, I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah. And I guess another thing on the ADUs is that I went through the Addison guide. And made notes about how much we'd have to change, so there's 2,
I
3.
did the same.
Great minds think alike. So I came up with like 7 or 8 things to change. I mean, the big thing is the chapter 4, which would be your thing,
Yeah.
the town rules. So I think that's fairly straightforward to do. The challenge I have, this is nicely formatted. I mean, they did beautiful work. So I don't know if you guys have experience in the past, how would graphically, like, how do you say, if you're Williston? Like, do
So,
You have to
do
do
we,
this.
do we take it and edit it and make it our own, or do we just have like sticky note kind of graphics, like, if
So,
you're Williston?
right, so like, I reached out to the guy who made it, to
Mhm.
Adam Luigi at, Addison County Regional Planning Commission. And I asked him, I said, I love this, I think it's great, I'd really like to adapt it for Chittenden County. Because
Mhm.
theirs is countywide, it'd be easy to do like a countywide, and then I think they have an appendix with like references to each town's.
Yeah,
zoning.
a lot of it, yeah.
And so he said, yeah, sure, I'll talk to me and I'll send you the files. So like, we
Mhm.
can basically create a Chittenden County version without too much trouble, and maybe I might ask the Regional Planning Commission's help in maybe creating an appendix with each town's zoning, whatever zoning was.
Mhm.
But you're right, it's pretty straightforward, just changing some of the references, and I mean, it's such a great guide, I think,
Mhm.
but anyway.
Yeah, there's a little bit about banks. I mean, they point to Middlebury having
Yeah.
particular kinds of loans, but
Right, so just,
calling those different banks and stuff like that. So, I mean, as we talk about the work plan, I don't think it would be a huge amount of work to make either Williston version, or I hadn't thought about a Chittenden version of it.
yeah.
That sounds good.
Anyway.
Yeah, I voted for the connecting with affordable housing and developers just because I kind of see like the bigger that we can do, the bigger the
Yeah,
more we create. But
yeah, and that's where that Champlain Housing Trust meeting is gonna be really important.
yeah, that and well, and also even I was thinking that there's a lot of local employers that are desperate for workers. If they have lands that they would donate to be built on, or do we have, would that be a possibility? Can we
It was
mix
interesting that
in with
the
commercial?
person who owns the Williston, the Essex,
Yeah.
Essex shopping center, Essex.
Yeah, some
the
experience.
corner, said that he's going to build
Yeah,
employee housing on the site.
yeah.
I thought that was really. It
Although
could
that-
start a nice.
I mean, a lot, you know,
And the local chamber of commerce is talking about this as well, because they have companies, and this is, not even affordable housing, just they need
Housing,
more
yeah.
housing for,
Mhm.
some of these larger tech companies are bringing people in, they can't bring people in, they can't find housing, so, they've talked about having a stock of housing where a company can bring somebody in, so at least get them here, and working.
Yeah. You know, and I mean, you think about the big companies, some of the big companies, like you mentioned, Non-Logic and Beta. I mean, it is really like, it's a regional problem.
Mhm.
And if there's a way to have like kind of a regional conversation about it and engage local businesses. would
well, or asking developers kind of like meeting with them and then asking what would be an incentive?
be-
Could the town give them a tax break, or should we be taxing some of these buildings that are sitting empty because they're getting a better tax break?
For the land that's vacant, yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, in South Burlington, it was mostly this TIF, right? They got the UVM housing.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, we're switching here to workforce housing, but the UVM workforce housing was done through South Burlington. Or at the same time, I mean,
Right.
I don't understand the
Yeah,
inside logistics on how all that comes together.
yeah, I mean, that, I think is a really powerful mechanism to, both draw in housing and affordable housing and, is, a real driver of economic development in the South Burlington's TIF district. I mean, it took, I think, many years to kind of get it established and get it going, but once they started building, it seems like it's gone pretty quickly, and so Williston is definitely thinking about that, about doing a TIF district and is right now doing a study on whether that'd be feasible. So that's like the very first step is to determine, like, do a marketing study, determine whether it's feasible. And because essentially with a tax increment financing district, you would have to know with a fair amount of certainty that projects were ready to go and developers were willing to develop in the next like 5 years to be able to get the income back that you need to pay off that tax.
For building the infrastructure.
Yeah,
So you basically set up a taxing area to build the road and infrastructure or whatever,
right.
and
So
then they come in right behind you.
yeah, basically, and then you've got the road there, and that's like the big incentive. You've got the road and the infrastructure, and
Mhm.
you look at South Burlington City Center. And, they've got all those streets are in with like beautiful sidewalks and big street trees that were planted, before the buildings went in and
Mhm.
it's, I mean, it's pretty amazing, really.
In the case, do I have this wrong? In the case of the UVM visiting nursing housing, doesn't that in 10 years go to the Champlain Housing Trust
I'm not sure,
or something like that?
yeah, maybe.
Something, so I mean, it sounds like a roundabout way, but
Yeah, and
an affordable housing bill, 10
Right.
years probably.
and then Champlain Housing Trust also has a number of units in city center as well,
Mhm.
so, yeah. Um,
Going back to the employers building housing for their workforces, the only thing I worry about with that is that we could get a situation where I mean, what do you do when you don't work for them anymore? You have to leave your housing. It's like what we've done with our healthcare system. You know, when you have your health insurance through your employer, then you never want, you're scared to leave your job, right? So, yeah. So
Well,
I
I was
worry
thinking more along the lines of they would donate land.
that would be better, yeah.
Because they're,
Mhm.
Yeah.
they don't wanna build housing.
Well, I mean, but like this Essex experience guy, it's like, it sounds nice sort of, but it's kind of like, what are you gonna do? Like create dorms for the retail workers, you know, then they can never leave. That's a little
I
scary to
think
me.
he's just talking about building affordable housing.
I hope so.
Not,
Mhm.
owning and.
Yeah.
Only for workers kind of thing.
Yeah.
It'd be good to hear from the developers kind of, what would be. What would be something that would motivate you,
Yeah.
because we're not gonna have enough money in the housing trust fund to do anything.
No.
Motivate them.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Um. hmm,
On the first item, well, we've talked about this before, I mean, I'd love to see this report from the state about what actual lots in Williston could be subdivided vis-a-vis this new 5 dwelling units per acre rule,
Yeah.
where you have, water and septic. You know, how many lots do we have like that?
mhm,
And start conversations with those owners. I mean, maybe they'll donate to Habitat, or maybe Habitat can buy them, or whatever, and that's infill and kind of building.
mhm,
I mean, I think that's a huge potential given the layout of our particular town. So that's why I voted for that one
mhm.
first.
Or you could put talking to businesses in there too,
Mhm.
find out, are there any commercial businesses that would be interested.
Mhm. Should I move on to the next slide?
Yeah, well, it might be in a South Burlington question to ask them who talked to the businesses and how they built those relationships, was it planning staff or? How did they get those relationships going? Because you do it to build a trust.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it would be nice to know where the typical timing on that is.
I mean, for the ones like the hospital building housing,
Mhm.
yeah, seems like a lot of them are sort of. The business itself is, it's like in Stowe, some of that. Like somebody ski resorts built something and Cabot built some for its employees and Killington built,
Mhm.
and
Mm. I mean, if they revert after 10 years to Champlain Housing Trust, then
yeah.
I think that's, I mean, if it really is a dorm for their own employees, that's an interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Go ahead to the next one.
So, let's see, so for your top rank strategy, list one or more measurable goals, so. I think there's. Some good ideas. How, so say, with. Evaluating land in Williston for potential to support affordable housing. What would be? How would you measure success? Like, what would be a goal that you would have for that? Strategy.
Well, I look at the one that's review barriers and one of my neighbors just subdivided his land. And he had to deal with this office. And then when he got all done at this office, he had to go to the firehouse and to maybe the police station or someplace else to get sign-offs. I think that an important incentive would be to have single point permitting. So that when a person walks into an office, when they walk out of the office, that you're ready to build.
Oh, and if we're trying to do that, do we have, is there a simplified? Or a guide, like a guide for ADUs, is there a guide for?
Yeah.
I mean, there sort of is on our website, there's like some guides to the permitting process,
Yeah.
but yeah, I agree that, that it can be onerous trying to get signatures from, the fire department and the Department of Public Works or whatever,
It was Public Works and
Yeah.
Fire Department.
right? I mean, Public Works. Yeah, I agree, it can be onerous for.
There
some
should
people.
be single point permitting
Mhm.
if we want people to not spend their time on development costs. I mean, the walking from one place to another is part of the cost of development. It shouldn't have to have that cost if we want affordable housing.
So if this is, we're evaluating land for the potential to support affordable housing, does that mean, so probably identifying areas where conservation, subdivision, or density are possible? Is gonna be important, and identifying these parcels of land and potential, because you gotta start with what you have,
So
which is your.
at the end of the year, so say you have this strategy that you want to work on. At the end of the year, what would you like to have done? Like, what would your goal be?
To feel good like we've made,
Yeah. like,
Progress,
what would-
yeah.
what would indicate, we really made progress on this, um. Like, for some things, say if you look at. Connecting with affordable housing developers, one measure of success would be. How many developers came in and spoke. We invited X number of developers to come in and we talked to them. So that would be one measure of success.
A measure might be a map of the town that shows the potential sites for affordable housing and has identified the owners or potential developers of those lots.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good,
I mean, the biggest measure would be have truly affordable, 50% or 60% or something. Housing available. But I think what you're probably gonna argue is that that's like a longer term goal, and we're doing the early work now.
well. Yeah, progress is slow and incremental.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna work on some stuff and you're gonna have. You'll make some progress, but what does that look like and what, like
Yeah.
incrementally, what does that look like?
Well, I also think that the single point permitting ought to be one of our goals for as near in as it can possibly be.
Yeah, I would support that. I mean, I know from the DRB right now that often we have fire department additions to the. And at the hearings, you have to say, there's a lot of commentary here, but we can only enforce the bylaws and a lot of stuff isn't in the bylaws, so. But to the person in front of us, they don't know that, right? This fire department gave them this thing.
Right, I mean,
So-
the fire department comments are not really enforceable under the bylaw, so it's a little
Right,
sketchy
Oh, interesting.
anyway, yeah.
yeah,
So when they want 102-foot turnaround, they can't really enforce that.
No. And not unless they adopt an ordinance, like a fire code ordinance. I mean,
That
so,
would kill a lot of dead end roads.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you do make a good point about the single point permitting. But for a lot of these projects, they've gotta go to the state fire marshal's office and
Yep.
then
Any
they've gotta go
multi-family
to
house, yeah.
get their stormwater permit or their, I don't know.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we can try to do our part and make it easy and streamline the permitting process here as much as possible. And that reminds me, if there is time, I actually I should have said this at the beginning of the meeting, but I had some information to share related to Act 250 permitting, which might be of interest. Yeah,
I mean, one thing I'd like to add here based on, again, this front porch forum and the discussions we've had is looking at HOA rules. I mean, do we have HOA rules that are making it exclusionary? I mean, you're right, Melinda, and what you told that one person from town is they have to vote their own rules in, but we could at least point out to those communities that your rules are impeding,
yeah.
and then perhaps you should vote on it.
Mm.
So if there are. I mean, this person seemed to imply that Snyder developments would all have these kind of limitations and that so many of them were Snyder housing, and this I do not know to be true. I mean, someone just said it in an email. I do not know this to be true, but if it is true that 4 or 5 of them have the same rules and they are going to limit not HOAs,
ADUs.
We could have a
ADUs.
goal of having a restriction on HOA rules in the town, you could have
Mhm.
town.
Oh,
We can't,
Why?
because HOAs are private entities
Yeah.
and they can make, I mean, the state could make a rule that said that prohibits ADUs. Or I mean, that prohibits
HOAs.
HOAs from prohibiting ADUs or from, you know,
subdividing or something.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the town can't. You can't include, you know.
but I wonder if it's something we should study anyway, so we can
Yeah.
understand the
Yeah.
impact, because
Yeah.
if it's true that most of our biggest developments are going to be excluding those, that's important to know.
Well, some of it may be ignorance on their part. I mean,
Right,
you know, and if we call it to their attention, they might change, you know, be happy to change them
Right.
voluntarily. So,
Right, just like, you know, some HOAs might have like racially exclusionary.
Now that's a violation of federal law.
It is, right.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, for HOA rules that violate the Fair Housing Act,
Mhm.
that violate federal law, those are rules that, like, they could be challenged and they could, you know, lose that challenge, lose in court or whatever, so, I mean, yeah, it's,
But didn't our Jericho visitors say that they were looking at their,
yeah,
because if people are 20 acre something minimums, you know, in those agreements, why, you know,
Right.
like, let's rethink that.
Yeah.
So maybe, actually, I could take it on to call her and ask her how they actually got those agreements.
yeah,
I mean, do you have to actually ask people that live in those communities to send them to you, or do you?
mhm,
Yeah, I mean, they usually have like a president, right? And then they-
Right, yeah,
So that person, yeah.
mhm,
but I could ask the Jericho person, I could look at the name.
mhm. Um,
Do they include HOA fees in the housing, in the rental cost?
and there's.
Like
though
when they
wouldn't
put in
be-
their rent?
They wouldn't be an HOA, they're just rental units, so, like,
Okay.
for the. For sale units, I think there's an assumption that, that there's a certain amount that you pay for. HO, you know, that the housing cost would include any HOA fees and, that kind of stuff, and utilities.
I mean, I think at this point, reporting our meetings and our presentations, like if we had an ADU presentation or whatever, counting that. It's probably a good way to talk about our work at this juncture. I mean, hopefully at some later point, it's true, a little more measurable in terms of we have
Mhm.
affordable housing.
Yeah, right, I mean, that's the long game, right?
Yeah,
More affordable housing, and yeah, hopefully. You know, hopefully even within a few years, we'll start to see more affordable housing.
it's a dream.
But, you know, also looking at the small things that could add up, you know, and from raising people's awareness to, you know,
Mhm.
maybe that leads to people voting to change their HOA rules, maybe that leads to more accessory dwelling units, I don't know.
I would like going back to your report about housing needs in our 7,000 retail workers. I mean, if we had a 10-year goal that half of them could live here, you know,
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah,
a brilliant goal.
so, yeah.
You know, it would be
Uh-huh.
environmentally brilliant and yeah, any number of ways that feels really good to me. But
So if we had that as a 10-year goal, what would the 1-year goal for
right,
getting there look like?
Well, I mean, so we could figure out. You know, so
and
take like the folks that work in retail, we know how many there are, right? Take whatever percentage, 50%, and we have a rough number for that. So that gives us like, you know, X number of homes, affordable homes in Taft Corners or something. I guess it doesn't have to be in Taft Corners. Could be anywhere in Williston, right? So yeah, I mean, that's pretty measurable, I think.
yeah, but I think your question was at the end of year one, how do you say we are chipping away on that goal? Because
I think that maybe the answer to that is involved in being in contact, having made contact with the management of the retail companies
Mm,
to try to enlist their involvement in working toward that goal. I don't think we could go much further than that in 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if the national chains would,
I know, are
Well-
they really concerned?
yeah, but maybe. What local chains do we have or? Local kinds of things. Actually, one question I had too is, you know, I go back to our lots now subdividable under this state rule. Sort of 0.2 acre. Possibly being a building lot encouraged by the state lot size. I know for a lot of older people, they talk about aging in place, right? They say, I can't stay here because then they always say front porch forum every day, taxes are going up, so I can't stay here. But, could the town do anything where, say, if they subdivided, gave the land to Habitat where they could have guaranteed taxes for the rest of their life or anything? Does anyone ever do something like that?
You mean
To
like
support the aging in place, right? My thing is I wanna live in this house forever.
tax abatement?
Yeah, something.
Yeah. Um. Was it? I had a thought, there's. I think a provision in state law that basically says. That anybody who's having trouble paying their taxes can request abatement from the town or whatever.
Mhm.
But where that goes, you know.
No, we need is the JPs, the Board of Tax Abatement.
Yeah,
And-
right.
And so we meet, like we're meeting Monday for, people
Mhm.
file requests
Yeah.
periodically and then
Yeah.
they get reviewed.
Mhm.
But
Has anyone ever prepaid their taxes for say 20 years? Say I'm a 70-year-old and I wanna view my house for 20 years. If I gave the land to Habitat, could Habitat pay 20 years prepay 20 years of my taxes, have some sort of agreement with the town?
yeah, I haven't heard of anything like that.
I mean,
Interesting
I just
idea.
think, we have we have an older community, right? And we want them to subdivide. So how do we make them feel comfortable that it's a win-win, as we say, you know? That,
Yeah.
yes, we get affordable housing, but yes, this person gets what they want to.
I was thinking that too with like developers, like, can they get a reduced tax rate for a certain amount of years for building affordable? Because then that makes them, when they go to the bank, they have, you know, their income will go further. You know,
Well,
gets their
isn't that what the-
percentage of it.
Well, like the tax credits, the low income tax credits are. Except that they're,
It does for the state part, but the town doesn't give any abatement based on, the
Right.
town tax is not based on, is not income sensitive.
right,
Right, yeah,
The state, the
yeah.
state school tax
The
is.
education taxes. Right. It's income sensitive.
Mhm.
So does that mean it's
Perhaps the
not
town
doable or?
tax should be too.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Is that doable to recommend that the town tax align with any state abatements, I guess is what I'm saying?
I have income sensitivity on the state,
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
town tax.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. we could
Well, they
ask
have
our reps to
income,
look
I mean, you
into-
have the homestead thing.
Yeah,
for
that's
the
what he's
state
saying,
tax.
that's for the state.
That applies to
education
the
tax.
state school tax. It does
Okay.
not apply to the town tax, which
Okay.
Yeah.
has gone up pretty dramatically this year. Could we have that same kind of income sensitivity on the town tax?
Well, but then
Yeah,
would it apply just to owners or could it be done for developer
I don't know
renter?
the answer to that. I don't know how the state tax works for renters.
Well, like, so
Well,
there's
not even
the
for the
rental
renter, but
rebate
for the
program.
developer.
I mean,
Yeah, there's-
that's what renters
Right.
get, so
Yeah.
they can apply for the rental rebate, and that's income sensitive too.
Yeah, I'm thinking more about how could we reduce the taxes if a developer, you know, if CHT buys the property, essentially they're paying the taxes.
Right,
So if we can say, okay, you have, you know, X period of time that you have reduced taxes or whatever,
yeah,
then that would give them, you know,
Based on your commitment to build affordable
Yeah.
housing.
and based on how long you keep it, or keep it affordable, or. Because then it would you know, that would help them as far as going for loans and money, you know, they can say, over time, we'll have this discount.
Yeah, that kind of thing isn't very popular with politicians because you're losing revenue, you're taking away
Mhm.
revenue that they want to spend on other things, so it's a little tricky.
But we need affordable housing.
Yeah,
Politicians keep saying that they're gonna do something to build affordable housing.
yeah, but if there's, if the taxes are paying for your police service and your fire service and your, you know, and
Mhm.
the town, which is what the town taxes pay, and the roads.
yeah.
They're gonna freak out and go, where are we gonna get the money that we need, you know?
Well, I mean, it's not like you're reducing taxes for everybody in town. And
Yeah, anyway, but
it's
you
not
have to
like
do the
it
math,
made
it's just,
that.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it's complicated. And you're gonna take away revenue.
It's interesting because there aren't very many places that we tax people on unrealized gains. And, you know, I bought my house for $60,000. I'm now paying income sensitive taxes on $420,000. I'm being taxed on an unrealized capital gain.
Because it's only on paper that your house is worth
Yeah.
420, because you won't see any of that money until
That's
you sell it.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking
well,
at
it's
it.
but it's a value tax, right?
So the other thing that is unfair about it is that I have exactly one house.
Mhm.
And the person, it's 1,800 square feet of living space. It's on what was minimum size building lot when it was built. And I pay 3 times the tax on that than if someone with the same income in the Northeast Kingdom does on their house, because the same house in the Northeast Kingdom on paper doesn't appear to be the same, but it's still exactly one house.
In Australia, they have to pay unrealized gains on all their stock holdings every year.
Oh,
It's a
goodness.
nightmare.
Oh, really?
It's a complete, they go and evaluate everything you own once a year, it's a nightmare.
Wow, yeah.
That-
I think in Virginia, we paid on everything that we owned.
Yeah,
Car,
exactly.
the car tax,
Yeah.
they'll get me.
We'll track you down for that car tax in Virginia too.
There are things that are good about Vermont.
Yeah.
Has anybody told the governor that?
Monica, you have any ideas to add to this list of goals for a year?
Not in terms of solving the tax situation, but I think there's a lot of lofty goals. I think there's plenty to work with already. Kind of exciting to think of the different partnerships that will need to be developed here. Yeah, sounds good.
So the last page of that survey basically asked you which, if any, of these things would you champion? And
Nobody said anything.
well, there were 4 dots. There were I could show it again, but
Is this the one we did the last meeting or did I miss
Yeah,
it?
that's what I thought I had done it at the last meeting.
It's in the meeting. Okay, I didn't do my homework.
I'll share it again.
Okay, I can do it tonight. Sorry.
It's in the email, the link if you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so the last one was, which of the strategies would you champion and take the lead on? And so two said
Mhm.
connecting with affordable housing developers, and 2 said launching the housing trust fund. So if there are, I guess maybe I'd encourage folks to either take, whoever wants to take the lead on any of this stuff.
Well, I'm already working on connecting with affordable housing developers
Yeah.
through our.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do outreach on infill properties, but we have to get that list from the state, right, of what properties can be subdivided, right?
Well, I mean, I can do, you mean from the regional planning commission, the work that they're gonna do, I mean, I can do some of that work. At its most basic level, it means taking the parcels and seeing which have the acreage
Mm-hmm.
to support additional homes, but then it's like you're really kind of looking at each one and sort of trying to assess, well, can a driveway work here, or, where's the access gonna come from? And so it's more like sort of fine grained kind of, if a parcel that's like, greater than 0.2 acres in theory can support a subdivision, but on the ground, you just don't know until you start really delving into it. There could be a lot of conditions on the ground that would prevent
That's
subdivision.
true.
Yeah.
So, what I'm saying is at its very basic and rough level, I can give you some idea. But, then you have to do further investigation, so I'm not sure,
But to me, the order would be,
yeah.
potentially if we subdivided, then we could talk as a group how to approach these homeowners, because not everyone wants to hear about, and then you have the conversations with them, because they're gonna self-select.
Yeah,
I mean, if you have
Well,
a
and
list
some
of.
of it is though, like my neighborhood,
Mhm.
there's a lot of common land, so the houses are on a smaller part, but there's the common land, but then
Mhm.
like there isn't really room for a driveway through, or, the way the houses are positioned.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
been a few people that have added on or put a addition that's, would qualify as this, but that won't, like some houses there's room to do that, and some of them there isn't.
I mean,
But they're
Like
individual
mine.
lots, right?
one way.
Yeah, but it's
Mhm.
like I'm a corner property, so my
I see.
house sits on a diamond more than on any coming here.
Right.
So I could put something in my front yard because that's the biggest space, but the backyard is a little triangle,
Oh,
so
dear.
then.
Yeah.
So-
And we're too close already to the
Yeah, I mean, I think
property lines.
one way you could approach this is, start out by doing like a really rough cut,
Mhm.
looking at parcel size and looking at, and we even can look at to some degree at constraints like wetlands and
Right.
steep slopes. And then kind of look at, there might be like some areas of town with more potential than others.
Mhm.
So maybe taking one of those areas and breaking it down a little bit further and seeing, sort of analyzing like. And you'd wanna look at things like, probably doesn't make sense to. Like if you're talking infill, you're really talking about areas served by water and sewer
Absolutely.
and, kind of. I think it's possible to kind of do like a rough cut. And then zero in on an area that looks like it might have a lot of potential when doing further investigation. And we can
Okay.
certainly do that, and
Well,
then,
if you do the first kind of data pass, I'm happy to
yeah,
come back to this group with suggestions and having looked at it closer.
Well, that might be
Yeah.
something too, if we did something like that, and you could just demonstrate a small. Have some
Right.
small demonstration kind of
Yeah,
things that
like,
you could put into a thing and.
Yeah.
promote.
yeah, right, like have, like, the ACCD has some kind of pictures of what they call gentle infill, and so you can
Mm.
you could
Mhm.
illustrate that, you could look at some examples, okay, so here's a parcel. You could put a driveway in here and have a, additional home back here or whatever. So yeah, there's. definitely-
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take on anything.
What home size do you consider for ADUs, 500 square feet?
So, we allow up to 1,500 square feet, but over. Okay, so you can go up to 900 square feet without like, a requirement that it be proportionate to the house, to the main house. After, above 900 square feet, it can't be more than 50% of the primary dwelling.
And it could be up to 1,500 square feet.
Could be up to 1,500 square feet, yeah.
What percentage of the,
50%.
50% of the primary dwelling. And it has to be one of either the primary or the accessory dwelling, it has to be owner occupied. So that's kind of,
So what we're talking about here is actually subdividing
More.
lots, right? So creating a whole new.
but there's
Yeah.
no minimum size.
for AUs, no.
Yeah, so the subdividing would be different. So,
I mean, outreach to local employers, we could do a first pass as a survey, right? We could say the housing committee is interested, and then it's out in groups of twos whenever we could get an appointment and just say, tell us, if we could house all your people, what would it look like? And then we could just do like, here's whatever our local employers want.
Mhm.
yeah, a survey that they could do on their own, you wouldn't have to meet with somebody that's like.
Yeah, we could
more
either do it.
liable to.
Yeah, although then why not do it?
Yeah, well, we could sort of do it, we could send it out and then for the ones we don't hear from, try to knock on doors, so.
Yeah.
The reality is that almost all of the employees that they have now have some place to live. So what you're really asking was what would be the optimum to allow you to get what it is that you really want?
Right.
I mean, some of their employees live far away. and they have to
Yeah.
commute, for
Yeah.
instance.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, and part of the survey could be what's the impact of that,
Yeah.
Right?
probably on bad weather days, it'll come more likely if they're coming an hour away or whatever.
Yeah,
I could get
Yeah.
some,
So that's an idea of drafting a survey, employer survey.
yeah,
So the greater problem seems to be the higher end that need to hire skilled workers
Mhm.
who can't find any place to live, so they have difficulty hiring, which is different than.
it's not even just higher end, I just, there was just an article somewhere and they were talking about, you can't hire.
Yeah,
Mhm.
UVM didn't want to take on more graduate students because they didn't have housing for them.
Right, and that's not an employer.
Right.
Right. Mhm. So, would it be helpful if I put together these notes into a more organized, kind of work plan thing? So.
Yes.
Did we end up with like measurable goals?
And, yeah,
Not sure they're all measurable, but.
so. Yeah, so what I'm hearing as being still the top. Is really doing the land analysis, I guess. And which I can get started on. And then connecting with, affordable housing developers.
And let me, on that, should we this year try to have more of those affordable housing developers come in and talk to us? Should that be a reasonable thing to have happen this year?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've already had Habitat for Humanity come in, I'm sure they're.
Will be good if we get CHT. They've done,
Are there developers, hockey homes are not being built anymore, is there a new
well,
hockey homes in the area?
I don't know.
What's that?
I don't know what it is, but
Hockey Homes was a family of six that were building 50 houses a year. Affordable houses in the new north end of Burlington.
I'm part of the Developmental Disabilities Housing Initiative. And we're actively looking for property that could be developed in Williston for a small residence for peer housing. But we're meeting, we've met with Sanisac, we've met slightly briefly with Jeff Davis, and we're working on Snyder and Seneca, and we've talked a while ago with which they're not affordable developers, no matter.
They're not interested in doing affordable development.
No, I think they're interested at some level. We're trying to talk with them. Summit Properties, he does only affordable development, and he hasn't done any in Williston. So we met with him about 2 years ago, but we've been talking about getting back together with him. And we're working with CHP on, plans for a property in Burlington, but. So. I'm happy to I'm already gonna reach out to.
well, if we had a meeting with sort of our regular
Yeah.
buildings we're talking about.
Mhm.
It might be interesting to include the energy committee, because then we could kind of all hear about heat pumps and how they think about it. How do they think about heat pumps and affordable housing, and how those two things play off each other?
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, it's another data point for them.
Um. Yeah, and sort of related to that, I had this idea of, kind of sending out a letter to the folks that develop in Williston, telling them, hey, look, this is coming, this, clean heat standard, or it might be coming, some version of it. And here's kind of what we're looking at, kind of give them a rough, scope. And say, if you have questions, please reach out, but we are gonna have a meeting. Pick a date in the fall, we're gonna have a meeting and invite developers in to discuss this and hear your concerns and, ask questions or whatever. As a way to kind of bring folks in, and that could be like a joint, meeting of the housing committee and the energy committee. Right now, we're a little bit on hold on that project because we've asked for some legal advice, and we're still waiting to get legal advice on what the town's authority is and so forth, and just other questions that we have, so. Anyway, yeah, so
All right.
related to that, yeah. So it sounds, yeah, go ahead.
No,
No, it just sounded like, was I hearing you say that you wouldn't mind sort of taking the lead on the,
yeah, that's
yeah.
fine.
Reaching out to developers.
Nice to have a name beside one, isn't it? Beside your own.
One thing that came up for me when we were talking about lot size and subdividing, one thing that came up in front of the DRB is this lot next to Hurricane Lane. They're out on the big road there, but they were gonna build a triplex. Like, there's a house there, but they're gonna build a triplex, but it looks like there's like a little seasonal stream thing in the back of the lot, so now it's just a duplex. But is that housing advocate, you're just like, oh, and the pictures of this thing is like a little pathetic ditch, but it sounded like it's been on some list somewhere. Anyway, that was a sad moment for someone who wants to see more housing, because that.
At one point, we talked about putting Habitat for Humanity housing behind town hall.
Mhm.
It was a
Oh, yeah.
problem because of the sightline, but once upon a time, the farmer who owned the land, probably Lyons, probably predates Lyons, had put in a farm pond.
Mhm.
It's forever a wetland.
Oh.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, we got in trouble for even building a trail on the property back there.
Because of the wetland.
Uh,
There's a route through it.
yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay, does that wrap up where we want to go with our goals for the year? We can revise them as we get through the year. If it looks like we've gone the wrong direction, or when we read the minutes, it looks like we need to add or subtract or polish anything. Do we need to do any more with that tonight?
Did we ever figure out any goals, or are we just going with the goals that we have?
What was that?
Trust? The housing trust fund? Are we just?
Yeah, we
going-
talked about.
We have those goals.
Different goals.
The housing trust fund, we have a draft that the select board has to approve, right?
Yeah.
So that's more in the future.
hopefully sooner than later,
Mhm.
meeting with Eric tomorrow, talk about that. Yep. Okay,
So the next thing on the agenda is fall event planning. And the first thing that was on that was the ADU workshop in Shelburne on the 16th of September.
Flyers are here.
There we go.
anybody wants to put up? flags?
14 Willistonians already signed up, but I'm not able to go that day, sadly, and that's the one day that's one thing I couldn't get out of, so.
I'm gonna go.
They always
Okay,
do
good.
that,
Yeah, I
right?
haven't signed
Yeah.
up, but
I'll be gone.
Yeah,
Can't remember if I
I
registered.
certainly hadn't planned to go.
And then, and we're partnering with them on this too, so I'm actually gonna grab some of these and get them to Pam tomorrow.
Is that, are we gonna have to pay admission to the theater to get in? to see
No.
it?
No, it's free,
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
but we would like people to register on an Eventbrite so we can keep
Okay.
track. You know,
Put that on front porch forum.
yeah, I will, yeah.
Yeah.
I can put up some flyers in our restore in our office as
Yeah,
well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh, good.
Um, anyway, so those are the two big things. Anyway, also for folks who are interested, Energy Committee is putting on an energy fair on September 28th. Which is a
Which
Saturday,
day?
September 28th, it's a Saturday, 1 to 4. Free ice cream and raffle prizes.
Right?
So that's how you can get.
That's how you get
people.
people.
Right.
Free ice cream.
You said 1 to 4?
1 to 4.
That's a day that I have 4 different things going on.
That's right, September, it's just double book month.
That's right, oh, and. I did want to share just if you don't mind, the interim, Act 250 exemptions
Yeah.
map has been released,
The interim what, map?
Act 250 exemptions map.
Okay.
So there, during the last legislative session, there was some pretty major Act 250 reform that went through, Act 81, I think it is. And so there's gonna be some sort of long-term reforms, but in the meantime, they have these exemption areas that will be in effect from now until 2027, January of 2027. So what that means is that areas inside the growth center, and let's see, Yeah, and buffer outside. Okay, so areas inside the growth center are entirely exempt from Act 250. And in the buffer area, priority housing projects are exempt from Act 250. And that's pretty big.
Yeah.
And then around the village, that's another area that is exempt, village center and buffer. Units, parcels under 10 acres and I think up to 50 units of housing. And let's see, it says this, oh yeah, and then I think up to 75 units of housing in the growth center. And for priority housing projects, it's unlimited units that are priority housing projects. And then this also applies to the area along Route 2A, which is a public transit buffer area. Area served by public transit. Those areas are anything up to 50 dwelling units of land 10 acres or less. Within a half mile of a transit route is exempt too, so. Anyway, it's kind of good news, and I'm gonna be putting this out to developers tomorrow, and just, sending them an email with a fact sheet, and we'll probably have a meeting later on this fall and just invite developers in and to.
So what is the red? It looks like it's all the areas that flood. Is that?
Yeah, that's that looks like a river corridor or flood hazard areas.
So- Essentially no new
Yes,
buildings?
yeah, essentially, like, they want to discourage development in those areas.
Can you send me that too? When you send it out, just
Yeah, sure,
send me a side.
yeah,
Thanks.
I will.
Well,
Anyway.
is that looks like it's on some website, right?
Yeah, this,
Government, oh, it's, must be the,
I could send folks a link if you're interested.
yeah, that's,
So we don't have any downtown areas in Williston, but we have town growth center.
right.
Right,
We were the first growth center in the state
oh, yeah.
many years ago.
Yeah, so, what that also means is the buffer area covers, I think, the Summerfield project. So, I think
Which one is Summerfield?
up in the Catamount Gulf,
Oh,
so he could qualify for an exemption, as a priority housing project, because he's doing, I think he has 30% affordable. So, anyway, just a. So,
doesn't look like it.
you want me to share it again?
Yeah.
Share it again. Yeah, so if you zoom in. Oops.
Oh, it's just barely in or barely out.
Family golf world, is that what it is?
Yeah, right, so it's this whole thing, and the rule is that if more than 50% of your parcels in the area, then it all.
The area expands to include your area.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, fair.
What other business do we have tonight? Monica, any other business?
Not for me.
Okay, if there is no other business, I will adjourn the meeting until our next meeting, October 1st.